Welcome to another episode of They've Got Now. I am really excited to be joined today by an all-star, a three-time WNBA champion, the original WNBA Sixth Player of the Year, and current associate coach over at Texas Tech, Plenette Pierson. Plenette, first and foremost, how are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Just excited. We're about to ramp up and school's about to be in, so we're just preparing for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's been I live in Cleveland, so like the weather is always insane in one way or another, but it's been like, I had like 3 straight days of 90 plus, and then it was like 60 yesterday. And I was like, what are we even doing here? So it's just my sinuses are like,
I know, right? We're at 100. We're 100 degrees weather. Like
yikes.
it's just hot.
That sounds absolutely terrible. I'm sure I mean, you're from Texas, so I'm sure you're used to it, but like, I don't think I could ever get used to that kind of weather.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get used to the dry heat in Lubbock. I'm from Houston, so it's humid.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it's a difference. I like the humidity, but not the dry heat.
No, absolutely. Well, yeah, obviously, I mean, talking about this summer, it feels like spring into summer has just been a nonstop kind of whirlwind. And it feels like, especially like there's the way that everything's continued to explode with how things go in the summer. That's only going to keep going. But what has the summer been like for you? Have you been able to kind of like sit back and like catch a break for a minute, or what has summer been like for you?
Well, summer's been crazy. College coaching summer is just crazy. You're at every AAU event with the new schedule of eval periods that we've had. Um, July has been a beast.
Yeah.
The evals periods were every weekend of July, except the first weekend because of July 4th. They've been like 5 days. You're out the office for 5 days. So we're literally getting 2 days to 2 to 3 days to work with our kids, depending on what time our flights are leaving to go out and recruiting. Then kind of August kind of slows down a little bit for you. We have the recruiting shutdown, of course, which is every coach's dream. You love that. You can always count on that time to just relax and unwind and do some things that you probably haven't done all summer.
No, absolutely. I wanted to ask too with that, like, how do you kind of obviously you've been coaching for a minute now, but what was that experience like getting into that? Because obviously you're used to your whole career, obviously playing year round, but going from playing in the States every summer to now, like, okay, well, I'm gonna be on the recruiting trail. So, how do you
Yeah.
kind of adjust that mindset? Because that's gotta be a lot.
I'm still trying to figure it out, to be honest. um, it's a daily grind. I kind of look at it as a basketball game. I'm going to play in those tournaments. It's early mornings, late nights, um, but you get to see a game that you love that you've invested obviously a lot of your years, my years in playing. I get to go see kids just try to fulfill their dreams and make it to college. So it's actually not bad. It's almost like a reunion for all your friends that are in the coaching profession. Like you get to go and actually be in the same place with them, maybe not on the same courts at all times. You get small chats here and there. Then you also get to meet new people. So that's what I've kind of just relished in is just learning and meeting and just trying to be a sponge like I was when I was a player.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think going to AU, excuse me, is one of my favorite things just because luckily, by the benefit of not being a coach, I don't have to like get up in the middle of a quarter to go to a court on the other side of the gym to watch a kid who's playing 15s. Like, so I have the benefit of like, I just get to go. I'm like, cool. I'm going to watch all the best kids playing 17s, have a great day, watch 17 games. It's going to be phenomenal. Um, so it's a different experience for sure. But I think like, I don't know, it's fun because like you're talking about, I think so much of it is you just get like a crash course in watching so many different skill sets and seeing everything. And it's like it's really hard to like I think AAU gets a bad rap, and I think there are sometimes like I get where some people come from with it, but mostly like, dude, you just get to sit there and watch basketball all day. I'm like, that's pretty sick. Like it's hard to not feel some kind of good about that. But I wanted to ask too, obviously, coming off this past year, this was the last 2 years have been an uptick for Tech. Obviously, this was Krista's fourth year as head coach, and a big year coming up with what you guys just did in the transfer portal as well, and in your recruiting class. Um, what has it been like? Obviously, kind of coming. We mentioned in terms of talking about recruiting, but like coming over and being at your alma mater as an assistant coach, and getting the feel for being at the collegiate level. Because obviously, I know you started at Wayne State for a year before going to the Lynx, but how did that opportunity originally come up, and then what has that been like? Kind of finding your groove this last couple years.
Um, that opportunity came up just out of nowhere. Like I couldn't have asked for something better. First of all, to have this opportunity to be able to be sitting at my alma mater, coaching at a program that I hold so dear to my heart. Just the way I got to grow up here, and the trajectory of my life after that. Like it's just a dream come true. Um, Literally, I'm coaching in the WNBA. Coach Gerlich calls me, and I'm just thinking it's a normal conversation like we've always had. Like we've had conversations periodically, like when we see each other, all the things when I was playing and coaching for that matter. And she just says, "Hey, we got a position that's coming available. Like would love to have you. Like we love everything that you embody, all the things." And it's just like, okay, let me think about it, because I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. Because coaching just chose me. I didn't choose coaching. I will
Mhm.
tell you this till I'm blue in the face, like I'll tell anybody. Um, I was like not gonna get into coaching after retiring. I was telling everybody earlier, like, you should go into coaching, you should go into coaching. I'm like, not doing it.
Yeah.
Don't exactly know the reasoning why I wasn't gonna do it, but it just wasn't a choice of mine. Um, but I've been really big on giving back. I just know what this game has given to me. Coming from a single parent home, like having to fight for everything, not having everything that you necessarily need or the information that you need. Coming out and being a collegiate athlete. So I just wanted to make sure that I was on the mentorship part. So that's been my thing for a good while, like serving underprivileged, all the things. So coming back to my alma mater and just kind of trying to assimilate to everything that goes on with college coaching, I just kind of attribute it back to that. The mentorship part is what's really huge for me. I love mentoring these young ladies, not only in basketball but life. Sports teach us a lot of things, a lot of different things that we don't get if we're not playing in a sport. You learn them later on in life. So that was a big thing for me. Is just the mentorship part. Is just to be able to teach them and hopefully get somebody to break my records. Like that's a big thing for me. Like I know everybody wants to stay in the record books, but I really don't care about staying in the record books. It just means for me that I set a standard and then I'm gonna try to push my players to beat my standard, and beat me because that's just that's all about the life thing, the life circle that you're gonna have is like be better than I was.
I love that. I think that's a really great mindset to have, and I think it's, I don't know, it's interesting, like, I'm obviously a little bit younger than you, but, like, in terms of finding that aspect of, like, wanting to kinda be back and being able to provide that, like, I don't know, I think so much of my early life was, like, I wanna get as far away from home as possible, right? And try out so many different things, and I feel like every time you just keep coming back, it's like after a month or 2, you're like, "Ah, I kinda just wanna be home," and, like, I wanna
Yeah.
find ways to make an impact there, and so that's cool that you've been able to do that. I can't even imagine what that's like, being able to have that opportunity. And you mentioned the records too. It's been 20 years. I think we got to those are gonna be up there for a minute still, I think. Those are pretty good records to have.
I'm hoping that I hope I have a few that's gonna break a couple of those. I actually did get one broken last 2 years ago. So that was a good one. So
It's
I'm proud about that.
it's coming
Andrew
through.
Scott actually broke my free throw mate. So I'm good.
I love it. Well, one player who I do want to talk about, part of the reason, like, I'd been wanting to set this up for a minute because just going back through, I just love watching games that I maybe didn't get to see growing up, and so I go back through season by season to try and just catch as much. And I love watching your game, and I think part of what was really fun as soon as I saw that you guys had a Jalynn Bristow in the transfer portal, another Texas kid coming back home. I was like, I really want to talk to you about Jalen because to me, Jalen was one of my favorite players as a freshman last year. I think, and part of what and we'll talk about with your career too, like there are a lot of players who are versatile, but like it's not consistent. Like you don't always have it. I think that's to me like the biggest growth that I've made and like how I see the game in the last couple of years is understanding there's a big difference between being able to do some stuff and then being able to do it all the time. And I think Jalen has the potential to be a player similar to you in terms of like she can play inside out, she can face up, she can pass, she can defend. So I'm just really excited about her getting to learn from you. So, when you knew that Jalen was going to be coming to Lubbock, what got you excited at first, and what is kind of initial stuff over the summer been like with her?
Obviously, as a coach, you always want to find yourself in players, and a coach like myself who's played for so long, like that's it's a little bit easier for me.
Yeah.
Um, I think Jalen's versatility is just unmatched. Her game is a lot like mine, but different.
Mhm.
And we talked about the record books. Like, I think she's one that could break my records. Just for the simple fact that her game and her skill set is way more advanced than mine was at her age. I didn't gain the versatility that I had in my game until I got to the pro level. So I would play 3-4, but when I was at Texas Tech, I was always in the paint. I was the 4-5. I think Jalynn has the skill set with the shot, the three ball, the ball handling, all the things that is already there. I think the one thing that differs between Jalynn and I is just my aggressive mindset.
Yeah.
I don't think Jalynn has grown into that yet, but that is an area that once she breaks into it and gets her confidence about being her versatility and her aggressive nature and all those things, you'll see her game really elevate. I'm really excited just about the possibilities that Jalynn gives us as a staff and as a team, to be able to play her at the three, to be able to for her to post up smaller guards, to be able to shoot the three, go into the four, being able to facilitate our offense from a post position, and be able to score and get out and run. Defensively, Jalynn is just long. She's long and athletic, and that's what you really want in a true versatile post guard player.
Mhm.
Um, that's what you really want, and she just embodies all of that. We know that, she's coming into a new system, new coaches, new everything, and it's gonna take some time because we have different terminologies, different way of playing, but, just the potential, the untapped potential that she just doesn't is not even aware of and hasn't even tapped into yet is just what's exciting for me.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think part of what's really fun about you guys is you play with a lot of like you have like two players below 5'10. It feels like pretty
Yeah.
much everybody's 6 foot or taller, a lot of length, a lot of height. And I think especially coming into this year, that could be really exciting for what the Big 12 is looking like. Um, you mentioned in terms of having that aggressiveness as well. Like, how do you teach that in players? Because that's one thing I wanted to ask. I was somebody who I was like just always pretty aggressive most of the time, too much. Um, but I think one of the things that's been so interesting is like it just seems like you either have it or you don't, and you obviously you can grow into it. But um, now that you're somebody who has gotten to coach for a while and kind of see that. What do you think has been most instrumental in finding that and bringing that out in players?
Well, it's just I think with this generation now, it's just a mindset, and then they have to understand and have faith in their coaches, and their coaches have to have faith in them that being aggressive is not always going to be the right thing per se, because sometimes you can get into foul trouble. It's gonna happen because you're being aggressive. But they need to know it's okay and to push the boundaries and push that line, but also know how to scale back. I think a lot of times, I see with a lot of our players is they wanna be on the floor, and they wanna be on the floor all the time, so I'm not gonna be as aggressive because I wanna be on the floor, but I try to teach them that you're not gonna be on the floor all the time. We got 15 players on the team. Sorry. Everyone would love to be on the floor all the time, but in a 34 game season, you're gonna be exhausted trying to be on the floor, the whole entire time. So why not go out there and be aggressive in the minutes that you do play and give it your all? Whatever that means, give it your all, exhaust the tank, and then go sit down, refuel the tank, and then come back and exhaust it again. And I think that short spurts of being aggressive, they see that they get more done and they get more accomplished because they're going to exhaust themselves and they're not going to be able to play the full entire 40 minutes of the game. You're saving yourself if you can play 40 minutes. And you're losing games in those spaces that you're saving yourself because you might be trying to catch your breath on offense when we really need a basket and you need
Mhm.
to do something, or you're trying to save yourself on defense when we need to get a defensive stop. So if you give your all, and it may be, I like to tell my players, it may be 2 minute spurts that you can go super, super hard and super, super aggressive, and then you have to come sit down. Well, come sit down, you get you a minute, 30 seconds, maybe, and then go back in and get you 2 more minutes. But those 2 minutes are more impactful than you saving yourself for 20 and 30 minutes.
No, that's a really great point, and I think especially when you talk about where the game is at, how fast everybody is playing. There's a lot of truth in that, I think, and it's going to be interesting to see how that keeps developing out, and how people adapt to that because there's exactly like I think you can't really be the kind of player like the level of player you have to be able to quote unquote like coast is like okay cool. you have to be Maya Moore, and Maya Moore never
Yes,
coasted either anyway.
and she
So it's
never
like,
coasted.
it's interesting. I think it gives me an even greater appreciation for that because I watch players like that, like watching Tamika Catchings play. I'm like, that's a player who played 40 minutes a game, and it was 100% every single second.
Absolutely, she's exhausted after the game, and that's where you wanna be, like, you know, you gave your all, you don't wanna live with any regrets.
No, 100%. Well, I want to dive into a little bit about your career because you hit on a really interesting point in terms of talking about where your skill set was coming into the W and how it expanded. And I think, again, part of the reason I really want to connect with you is I think it's really hard for people to do what you did, coming in as more of a role player and then becoming a star, but also being able to scale back later on in your career on greater teams and as your as athleticism winded down a little bit. Like what was that like for you in terms of being because again, like I think a lot of people, even at the pro level still, really struggle to come in and play in a smaller role and find themselves in that, but then grow. But I also think like, that is the best way to grow in a lot of ways. You get really good at one thing, you hone in on your thing, and then you expand from there. But I think so much of what a lot of people think development is, well, I need to have maximum minutes, do it as much as possible. And honestly, it feels like the other way is the best way to have it in some ways.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, it is a mindset that you have to have in order to do the things that I've done and be successful in the ways and the areas that I've been done. But I've always been a selfless player. I've always had that mentality that whatever I can do to help the team is what I was going to do. I always was a confident player. I was confident in what I brought to the table, and that's just what I was going to bring. Everyone knew day in day out I was going to give 100% effort. May not look the same every day, but I was gonna give maximum effort in everything that I did. I was gonna go hard. I was never gonna be tired. And if I was tired, I knew that I had to push through until coach took me out, all the things. I just think progressing through the WNBA and doing all those things and coming in after leaving tech, where I was quote unquote one of the stars because I would say we had a team full of stars. Like we didn't get to Sweet 16s and Elite Eights if you don't have a team full of stars. Um, so, I mean, I just kinda knew that I was gonna have to make some changes into my game from being a scorer and the number 2 or number 3 option in an offense to what can I do to still make an impact on this game? And I just started watching pros, listening, all the things, listening to the coaches while I'm sitting on the bench, I'm trying to figure out because my first 3 years in the WNBA, I did not play. I was in Phoenix and I did not play. So I would just sit there and just listen to what the coaches are saying, what they're yelling at the other players about, how the other players on the court that play my position were doing or not doing. And I just found a niche in doing all the things that the stars of the WNBA, because we've all been stars in our own right in our own universities, but now we're all coming together and now are labeled, some are labeled stars over others in that period of time. So I just tried to figure out what they weren't doing. And that's what I was gonna do. And I just found a knack and a niche for, playing defense, hard nosed, aggressive defense, taking charges, diving on the floor for loose balls. Because honestly, those are things that I can control. I can't control how many shots I'm gonna take because I don't know how many passes I'm gonna get. I can't control how many rebounds I'm going to get because guess what? I'm a smaller post player. I'm now going up against bigger players. So where I could impact the game was in those small spaces that don't show up on the stat sheet, that don't get talked about on the TV, don't get wrote up in the newspaper. And so that's pretty much what I just hung my hat on. I always knew that I could score, but that's something that would come in time in a space. But I knew I had to solidify myself as a player that can come in and impact the game no matter how many minutes I'm playing. So we talked about those short spurts. I'm asking my players to give 110% of what they have and be super aggressive and exhaust themselves. Those are the spaces that I found that I could give 110% and be aggressive and do all those things. And it became an art.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think that's such incredible perspective too, because like you mentioned, I think finding ways to learn from the people who have been there before you, who have that experience already, or maybe even like I think you can learn so much from watching people who maybe aren't, saying doing things the right way is the wrong way to put it, but like maybe you see people who are struggling. You're like, okay, well, what could I do differently than what they're doing? Like seeing all that. Yeah. I mean, that's really great perspective to have. And you mentioned those, when you leave Phoenix too to come over to Detroit, and I think that's going first off, like, going back and watching those shock teams, that's one of my favorite things I've gone back and done. It's so fun because, like, I don't know, it's interesting. Like, I love '90s and 2000s basketball, both in the W and in the NBA. I think there's a penchant for people to be like, "Oh, well, it was just, like, dominated by post play and it was too slow," and I think to me, like, when you watch the teams who did things in a certain way, it gives you a better appreciation for, like, being able to pick apart what excelled and what worked. Because you look at those Detroit teams to me and like, I'll never forget. I asked Bill about this. I got to talk to him, which first time it was the first time I ever talked to Bill. Just an incredible character. But like so the 2003 team that won a title, they like put the ball in Swin's hands a ton, and she was like kind of played point guard a lot because they were a little bit, they were more like having a ton of length at every position, but somewhat smaller. And I asked Bill, I was like, she's like kind of like the first point forward we'd ever really seen in the league. What inspired you to do that? And he's like, well, she couldn't shoot for shit, so I had to do something with her. And I was like,
Typical Bill answer.
yeah, yeah. And I was like, genius, but also like as simplistic as possible, right? And so it was funny, but I think watching those Detroit teams that you were a part of, like, no, you guys didn't shoot tons of threes, but the defense was there. You could see everything in terms of like, okay, can switch. There was a lot of length and versatility. And then on the offensive end, like, again, just the passing always stands out. I think everybody could really make good decisions. Like even when you guys had Taj there, like Taj is a player who's playing out like the 15, 16 feet most of the time, but like really good passer, could do some good stuff from the high post. And I think again, like teams that play defense can make good decisions and can just get to the line and be effective in that way. I think that stands out a ton in watching you guys.
Right,
Um,
we definitely had an identity, like, in Detroit, we definitely had an identity, and I think that's really where I blossomed as a professional player. We definitely had an identity, it suited my style of play, which is aggressive. Um, Everything about our Detroit Shock team was aggressive, like, we collectively as a group, we're gonna play aggressive, we're gonna play hard, we're gonna do all those things, and it just didn't matter that we couldn't shoot or we didn't shoot a lot of threes. You had to stop us. You had to make a choice at the rim whether you're gonna foul us or you're gonna let us score. So we just all had that same mentality. But I also think the identity for us was we were accepting of any challenge. And I think like with you talking about how Swin Cash was our first look at a point forward. And Bill just trusted her and said, here's what we're gonna do. Well, Swin had to accept the challenge in order to for that to work and to buy into that. And I kind of feel like that was the same thing for me. And that's where I blossomed and got the versatility that I had later on in my career from that point on is because I mean, we talked about Tamika Catchings. We know how hard of a guard she is. He plays hard every freaking game. And it's like he said one game he looks at me, he's like, you're about to guard catch. And I'm like, what? Me? I've never been out the paint. Like, what are we doing? But I was like, forget it. Like, all right, it's a challenge. Imma accept it. It may go well, it may not go well, but that's what we're gonna do. So those are the moments that you learn and you blossom in when you get out of your comfort zone. And Bill was great of pushing people out of their comfort zone. And, I couldn't have done half the things that I've done in my career if I didn't go to Detroit. I think it would have taken me a little bit longer, and maybe the league would have passed me by that time if I had went to different programs and organizations. And I just think that that was our identity. We were going to accept any challenge. It didn't matter if people thought we were undermatched, overmatched, whatever. We were going to accept the challenge, and we were going to do it collectively as a group.
yeah, yeah, no, it stands out in watching those teams back. Honestly, like one of the great accomplishments of my year, I found like a bootleg version of the 2006 finals on YouTube, which like the only reason I was able to find it is because I mistyped.
Uh huh.
So somebody had like put in Detroit Shock, but I think it was in Spanish. So that's the only reason I was able to find it. It was like 70 views, so it hadn't been removed off YouTube yet because for whatever reason, it's like impossible to get film before
Hmm.
2008, 2009 when Synergy took over. But like again, like number one, I think the thing that I always go back to, like, I can't even imagine watching like Deanna Nolan play now. Like just an like, I don't know, like, cause I went back to I found her, her games from Georgia,
Mhm.
and I was like, "Dude, I've never seen somebody get that much height on a jumper before." It's, like,
Yeah, she was
nasty.
unreal. She was
Yeah.
unreal. Like, she was unreal. Like, sometimes I found myself in awe just, like, watching, like, how does she do that? Like, she's, like, skying over people that's twice her size, like, easily. But, yeah, I mean, she was a talent. Like, we had lots of talent on that team.
Yeah, no, I so it's funny because watching I think it was Georgia versus Tennessee in, like, 1999 or something like that, but they would run, like, lob plays for her backdoor. And she's like it's funny because 'cause I've stood next to her before. She's listed at, like, 6'1". She's
Yeah.
easily 5'9" on a good
Yes.
day. So I was like it's yeah, crazy to me. But, um, yeah, in terms of just, like, looking at that overall, do you ever kinda, like, think about how much collective basketball IQ kinda came out of that team because, like, you have Bill, who obviously did incredible stuff throughout the league, but then Cheryl was one of the lead assistants on that team, has obviously
Mhm.
been phenomenal, somebody who you obviously went and played for eventually again and coached alongside. You have Swin, who's, basketball ops with the Pels. Obviously, you and where you're at in your career and just up and down, this entire team was just filled with people who have obviously were incredible players, but also went on to do incredible stuff outside of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of basketball IQ on that team, and that also came from just us the willingness to learn from each other and not, get mad or get in our feelings because somebody said we did something wrong. It was just like, okay, what were you seeing? Maybe I wasn't seeing it. And I think that's where you really grow a lot is just learning different perspectives and not taking things too personal. A lot of times we take things too personal.
Yeah.
And especially in this generation, just what I'm learning just through coaching, you take it personal, but it's not anything personal. It's just maybe somebody saw it this way, you saw it another way. There's always different perspectives. Um, and you just have to learn and grow from like, okay, maybe I missed that. I got you next time. And we keep moving forward. And maybe that next time it actually works, but the next time after that it doesn't. So, I mean, you just have to be accepting of those perspectives and just understanding. And that's when your basketball IQ grows. And not only that, is just learning your teammates. Like,
Mhm.
that was one of the biggest things that I learned throughout the pros is learning your teammates. Well, just because every year you have a new team in the pros. Every year you have a new team, which is what we're seeing in the college game now with the transfer portal. Every year sometimes you're gonna have a mass exodus of players. Whether it's three, whether it's two, whether it's five, you're gonna have a mass exodus of players. So starting to learn your teammates. Like one thing for me, I'll never forget is just learning how Cheryl Ford likes to put the balls passed to her. She doesn't like bounce passes. Okay, cool. So I have to learn to adjust that. Or when she's gonna be open. It's the same with Deanna Nolan. Like when she's about to come off a screen, like, am I running over to it? Do I need to stop earlier because I'm learning her speed versus my speed? Just all those kind of things. Which way does Katie Smith like the laces in the ball to shoot it? Like those kind of things, they're really small, but they end up being really huge things. And those are things that carried me through my career pro. It's just learning those so that I can adjust and adapt quickly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And going off that too, I think again, one of the things that stands out so much about that team and that era, like even in 2006, like there is one starter who's older than 26. There's two players in the top 8 older than 26. I just feel like it's very rare to have a group together that is still relatively like that young, in terms of basketball years that is able to be as cohesive and be so successful. I think again, like that's something that I took for granted when I was younger, but now that I've been around those teams more, I'm like, that's a lot harder to do than I think people realize. So, even obviously like basketball wise on the same page, but in terms of like having that click off the court and be able to have that cohesion on the court, what do you think was instrumental in that? Because again, I think to me that probably stands out more to me even than the play.
I would just say, we were all unique. Like we knew we were unique. We knew, it's just a thing. Like, I tell everybody this, like we were a championship team and we didn't all like each other. And that's okay. But we all had a common goal. We all knew what the goal was and we were all chasing that one goal. So whatever things that we had going on between each other outside the court, when we stepped inside those four lines, we were true sisters. Like through and through, like, we're a family. Like we're gonna argue off the court. Like But when we come on the court, no one else is gonna see that because we're gonna look so cohesive that it just doesn't even matter what was just happening 10 minutes ago or 25 minutes ago or 2 hours ago. It's not gonna matter, because we're going out for the same goal. We have the same goal in mind, and whatever it takes on the court, that's what we're gonna do. So that was the biggest thing. I mean, and we were all allowed to be our unique selves, like literally be our unique selves. Some of us liked going out, some of us liked staying at home, some of us liked going to just eat. Like, but we just found something that we could all connect on, and it happened to be basketball. Basketball and
Yeah.
our love for the game, and that's just what it was.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think part of one of the things that's cool too is like I think, whenever people think of Bill, obviously they think of like his one-liners and just kind of his personality that they got to see shine through. But I think from anybody I've ever talked to who's played for him or worked for him, one of the most intense like ride or die people for the people he trusts and is loyal to. And I think that's something that can easily get like swept under the rug that people don't necessarily see if they're not there every day. What was like, what do you kind of take away from Bill, especially now you're removed enough from having played for him? Obviously, it helps a little bit.
I liked his frankness. Bill was straight to the point, no sugarcoating, and you have respect for that. I will never forget the day I got traded and I got to Detroit. I come into his office like I'm brand spanking new. I'm just looking for a new opportunity. I'm just trying to play. Calls me in his office and he's like, "Well, glad to have you." And I'm like, "Glad to be here." So he's like, "Gotta tell you, I don't have no minutes for you." And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like,
What'd you trade
"Why
for
did
him
you trade
before?
for me? Like, what are we doing here? Why are we going through this?" And he just sat there and he's just like, "I don't have any minutes for you, but you can earn them. You can earn them." And I'm like, "Okay, I can respect that. Like, okay, don't promise me something that you obviously don't have." Like, and then obviously like his pedigree from him playing. So I'm coming in and I'm eager. I'm like, "Man, we fixing to be dirty. We fixing to be aggressive. We fixing to do it all. Like, this man's fixing to go for it." And like, and it was re-energized me, because I think starting out in the league, I like to tell people I'm an acquired taste. So I'm super aggressive. That's just how I've been. I fight for everything that I want. Like I'm not gonna let anybody tell me no that I can't do something. I'm gonna fight for it. So that's how I was. And I think coming into Phoenix, um, I was kind of a odd man out, because that wasn't their style, and that's okay. Um, a learning curve. I have to learn how to taper. But coming into Detroit and understanding who Bill Lambier was, Rick Mahorn was, all the things, in their playing days, in their glory days, like just re-energized my spirit because that's who I was to my core. I'm gonna battle. I don't care about making people mad. I don't care about hurting feelings. I don't care about anything. I have something that I'm trying to accomplish and I'm gonna make sure it happens. So just like coming in and him just being frank and just being honest, because a lot of times I think just the reality of the world, a lot of people sugarcoat a lot of things. Um, just having that frank conversation with him and just him telling me that he's not promising me anything and I'm gonna have to work for everything that I get here, just really made me just want to just be there and assimilate with that team and just work for everything and just to know that there was a fruit at the end of the tunnel. There was that dangling fruit that all your hard work that you put in, all these hours that you put in, you're actually seeing success because you're actually playing for it and you worked for it. So that's always a great thing. Is just I just remember his frankness and I love his frankness and I kind of try to do that now. um I don't like to sugarcoat anything
Mhm.
for my players. But of course, I think those are things that you need to hear, not what you want to hear.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's one of the things that stands out to me a ton too. Is just like for any team that wants to be successful, or any, I mean, it stands for any walk in life. But I love basketball, so it stands with basketball. But like
Yeah.
the communication just sets everything apart. Like I think that obviously like talent is the great separator, but I think the communication aspect. There are teams throughout that I think have had the more than enough talent to win things, but it's just like you can tell like these people are not on the same page. Like there is, and I don't know. Like I think when I was younger, I used to think like, okay, well, yeah, it's just communication, whatever. Like when you're playing on the court, it's all fine, but it's not that simple. Like I really do think so much of that feeds into one another, and you have to have that in order to be again on the same page because like it's like talking to people about basketball is such a great double-edged sword because number one, you get to talk about basketball, and
Yeah.
everybody, at this level is smart and has ways of thinking. But the other aspect too is like everybody's smart and has their own ways of thinking. So like you
Right.
can have two people look at the exact same thing and have completely opposite ideas or answers, and it's great, but also, like, it gives me such an appreciation for, like, it is really hard to be good at this, to have everybody actually on the same page
Mhm.
and working towards the same goal because it's just, like, the reality is that is very rare to have happen.
Right, right. It is very rare. Um, I mean, just in anything, in a workspace, in a sports space, like it's just really rare to have everyone on the same page. But I definitely think the communication is the glue. The communication and the understanding of different perspectives is the glue to make it all work, and it'll help you smooth over a lot of things, a lot of disagreements, and all those things and feelings if you just communicate.
Mhm. Taking that into your college coaching career too, like, how was that for you in terms of going from, like, obviously being an incredibly good high level player for over a decade, like, did you feel like you had to taper down a little bit coming into college? Or maybe taper down is not one way to put it, but, like, for reference, like, when I was coming up, I had a coach who was he was an All-American in college. Incredible player, hell of a player, but he could not coach kids in high school because he was like, why aren't things that he was doing because he was 6'6", 6'7", like, dude, we can't do that. Like, we're 5'10". But like, so how do you kind of like find a comfort in that and still wanting to be somebody who can like obviously be yourself and be authentic, but like, like find kind of meeting them at the same level too.
Well, me as a person, like, first of all, I'm an overthinker and I am
Very
a super
relatable.
conservative person. Like, I I would say my transition to college with my first year here, especially my alma mater, like, I'm like, we did this and we did that. I didn't want to come in and do that. I didn't want to be that coach.
Yeah.
But I just try to sit back and just watch all the other coaches, my other coworkers, my head coach, and watch how all of our players respond to different things. Um, and then that way I know where I can be, how I can be with them. So like I just really like to sit back and watch like nonverbal things, like watch how their body language is, everything. And that's one thing that I learned from Rick Mahorn. Like we used to sit before the games, as the other team is warming up, watching, how they're shooting, how they're favoring a leg or an ankle or something like that. So that's kind of where I've transitioned and pulled from. With my players, is just trying to watch and observe and watch how when I talk to them, how do they respond, all the things. And then I think my second year, I kind of was like, okay, I got a handle on this. I know who can take what and who can do what. And then I know there's some that I have to sugarcoat it a little bit more with than I have others that I can shoot it straight to. But it's just been really just me just watching and being observant. I kind of my players they don't like it all the time because I notice things that probably some other coaches don't notice. Like when they're frustrated and they're trying not to show it, I notice little things, or when they have some anxiety, like I notice things, and I'll just walk by with a little subtle shoulder hand on the shoulder, like you got it, and keep moving. And they're like, Coach P, how did you know that? How did you know that I was frustrated in that moment? Or how did you know I was mad about this? I'm like, I just watch. I may not say a lot. I watch and just, notice the little subtle changes. So that's been the real thing for me to be able to move and be myself. Just kind of finding those spaces, but they know that every day that I love them. I go out there every day before practice. It doesn't matter what kind of mood I'm in. I'm going to make sure I pour into them. I give each and every one of them an individual hug. Just a small second. Hey, how are you doing? How was your day? You feeling good? And move on to the next one. And just being consistent with it. That they know. Like a lot of them tell me, Coach P, I don't like hugs. I'm like, well, you're gonna like mine. By the end of your time here, you're gonna like mine. So that's just a way just to build a relationship with them, so they understand that I'm gonna be the same person every day, and it's no hard feelings. There's not a personal vendetta against you. There's nothing. I'm gonna coach you the same way every day, and then you're not gonna like me some days, and that's okay.
I really like that aspect talking about like just kind of having individual touch points with everybody because I think so much like Not even just in terms of, like, communication relationships, but I think, like, people, it's always, like, all or nothing, like, you envision, like, "Okay, I'm gonna do this really big thing, and that's our connection," but, like, so much of it is, like, you're able to have those bigger, more established things because you let somebody know that you're, like, thinking about them every day, and I
Right.
think, like, that's a really interesting aspect to, like, kinda dive
Right, and
into and
2,
think
they don't
about.
understand what I get from it as well,
Yeah.
like, I might have had a hard day in the office, and now I'm going to practice, and they're re-energizing and refilling my cup by just having that small conversation or hugging me a little bit tighter because maybe they needed it. Well, in turn, I needed it too. So, I mean, basketball and sports is an energy thing. You have to give off good energy all the time. You have to give it off, and when you're low, someone else will fill you up.
Mhm. Well, what I want to close out on too is talking about the Lynx and your time there, and making the transition from player to coach, and doing that with the same franchise because I think like that's a very rare thing to have happen. Number one, coming into Minnesota, you knew obviously this is a championship level team. This is what you're coming into. Um, and you knew it's the tail end of your career. How do you approach that mindset wise? Because again, like I think it's very clear watching that season, going back and like seeing stuff from that. I was listening to interviews from Cheryl during that year talking about your impact. Um, Very clear that you were comfortable in coming in and making the decision. At least hearing those people talk, it seems like it. But what was that like for you, kind of coming in and knowing like, okay, I'm taking a step back in my role. It's going to be a little bit different. How do you kind of approach that as a player? Because I feel like again, like that's got to be, when you hold yourself to a certain standard. Like you're an all star just a couple of years before, and you've been at that level. How do you kind of approach that?
Well, I mean, I'm a realist. So,
Yeah.
like a couple years before that, like, I was kind of feeling like, maybe time to hang him up. Like literally it was time to hang him up. I always said that I wanted to walk out of the league the same way I walked into it. I didn't want the game to pass me, and I was still trying to play and keep up with these youngsters.
Hmm.
So, I'm 35 the year before I go to Minnesota, and I'm just like, "Yeah, I don't know. This might be it for me." And Cheryl Reeve calls me, and I'm like, "Okay, we've kept in contact periodically, throughout our time since Detroit. Like, we've always kept in contact." And she calls me, and she's like, "Hey, what do you think about coming to Minnesota?" And I'm like, I don't know, cause I kinda once I get set on a path, I'm like, "That's where I'm going. I'm going down this path of retirement." Like, I don't know. So she's like, "Just think about it. We could really use you." And I'm like, okay, like, but what am I gonna really do there? Like, I'm already feeling like I'm gonna retire. This is a championship team. Am I, like, made for this? I'm an overthinker again. Am I made for this to give it one more year?" Um, and then finally, I just came to the conclusion, like, "Man, this is an opportunity of a lifetime." Like, I have to give myself another shot to win another championship. Like, because that would have been like the greatest way to walk out in my mind is to walk out giving yourself a shot by just making the playoffs and getting deep, making a deep run in the playoffs. Like, okay, so here's my chance. You don't get these chances a lot. A lot of people don't get the chances that I've already had. So you really don't get this chance. So I'm like, my former coach, I trust her, like, all the things we have this relationship, like she's gonna shoot it to me straight, like everything about my role, all those things. So I'm like, all right, let's just do it. I walk into Minnesota and I'm like, I'm in awe. Like, I'm literally in awe. I'm fixing to play with Maya Moore, Lindsay Whalen, Rebecca Brunson, Simone Augustus, Sylvia Fowles. I'm like, man, like I was watching them while I was sitting at about to go overseas, like, because they're still playing in the championship. So I'm like, this is awesome. Like, this is great. Like, then on top of that, to add icing on top of the cake, my former college teammate Gia Perkins is there. So I'm like, you don't get these opportunities. Like, we hadn't played together since we left college. Like, so it was just like, okay, I'm walking in there and I'm just like, Cheryl's like, here's what it is. These are our five. You can find some time, but I know that you can impact this game. You can help us, this and the third. So I'm like, okay. So I'm just giving my all, like whatever it is I needed to do. Like, learning to play with Sylvia Fowles was always a challenge because I've never played with a post player like her that can jump out the gym, that can do all these amazing things. Just getting to learn Simone Augustus, master of the pull-up game. So I'm like, I got to figure out how to get her the ball. Like I'm just thinking about all these things, and I'm like trying to figure out how I fit in there. And just basically, it came back to my first year in Detroit. How can I impact this game and with this team of stars? And it came down to my defensive intensity, um, my aggressiveness, my willingness to set screens. And that's just where I landed at. And so it was kind of a full circle moment for me. Um, just to go back to my Detroit roots, I won championships in Detroit, so why can't I do it here doing the exact same things? And so that's where I kind of just landed. And fortunately, there were younger players on the team that I could mentor. I knew I wasn't gonna be able to play 20 minutes. Like it just wasn't realistic for me to be able to play 20 minutes at 36. Um, nor did I want to play 20 minutes, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like every game, night in and night out, travel, playing 20 minutes, like that's a lot at 36. So it was everything that I wanted, and everything that I embodied. The aggressive play, how I made a name for myself in Detroit, and then the mentorship that I'm still doing to this day. So it was like I had everything that I needed wrapped up in one. And then I just had amazing people around me. They were amazing. Like they were amazing. There were so many times that they would just be like, "We love having you on the team, PP." Like you set a mean screen that time. Like, yeah, 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 I need that. Like, I mean, that was just, recognition of the hard work that I put in and the willingness to be selfless and to just help them out any way possible. And it was just great to be playing with my teammate again, Gia Perkins, because we had such a great time. So it was fairly easy, I should say. Long
Yeah.
story short.
No, definitely. What was is there like one moment that kind of sticks out to you from that year about Maya that was just like, wow, like I just don't know how she was a real player.
I mean, just the way Maya carried herself game in and game out, like I mean, everyone threw everything under the sun, every defense under the sun at Maya, and it's just like, oh my gosh, like, how are you able to do these things? Like, we talk about the Deanna Nolan moments that, we're throwing lob passes to Deanna. Like, it was the same thing because we actually did that. We actually ran a play and threw a lob pass to Maya. Like, it's just like to be able to be around the greats and just see their work ethic. Maya worked so hard every day, but she was always herself. Lindsay Whalen worked so hard every day on her craft. The same with Sylvia Fowles and Simone Augustus and Rebecca Brunson. All those guys worked so hard every day on their craft, and they were never satisfied with just being great. They wanted to be better than great. They wanted to be phenomenal. So, like, just I mean, Maya's just unreal, like, the things she was able to do, but that's also comes from the preparation. Maya's been prepared for these moments. Like, a lot of kids now like to think about you show your stuff on the court. Like, no, it's the preparation behind that. Like, so every day that you're in the gym, like that's the preparation that is going to show on the court. So Maya did all those things from high school to college at UConn to the pros that it was just easy for her. And then that's what amazed me. It was just everything was easy for Maya. It was nothing that was hard. So that's what I just loved about that team.
Yeah. No, and in terms of like how that kind of compared to, your first two titles in Detroit, like I think one of the things I'm always interested by, like, how do you kind of feel like, you get a taste of that so early on in your career, and then you get to close out on that. So, like, did you have a different appreciation for it? Did it kind of feel the same, or what was it like for you?
I always had an appreciation for it, like for winning championships,
Mhm.
because that's hard to do. Because I chased that in college, I chased that in high school, and I didn't attain that. So that was always like a hunger for the championship. But again, like I said, we're talking about Maya, like and that Minnesota Lynx team, like they wanted to be phenomenal at every they didn't want to be satisfied with just being good or just being great. And so that's kind of like where I was. Like I didn't want to be satisfied with just being good. So every time I got a championship, I wanted it again. I wanted that same feeling. But I was ultimately appreciative because players like Taj, when she came to Detroit, had played what 10 something years and 10 plus years and hadn't won a championship. So I felt like I was one of the fortunate ones that got that early in my career. So then full circle moment to go out on a championship, like it's something that I can't script again that I'm super like grateful about and I love that moment and then I got to go out with a coach that knew me and players that accepted me and I got to go out being me. So it was great. Like they were mad at me that I said I was leaving, that I was retiring, but I mean, it was time. Like they were like, "Would I've been asked several times since that moment, would I have retired without the championship?" And I honestly can say yes because I had my full circle moment, just being with those players, being able to be myself, even though I wasn't the player that I was coming out, or even when I won my first championship. And I think that's what basketball gives you, and I still have them as friends, like, I still call and talk to them, like, all of them, like, we all have different relationships with each other, but I still talk to them, I can still lean on them, and that's what I was looking for, and that's what you play sports for, is to have a secondary family.
Yeah. No, that's awesome perspective to have because like I think it's interesting because like I mean I'm 27 now and I like my athletic career ended at 22, like earlier than I wanted it to for sure. But like I think in terms of the feeling, at least for me, my thing was always like and it hit me when I was like 25. So I still like, do a ton of athletic stuff. But like you hit a point where it's like if I don't stretch by like 9:30 in the morning, I'm cooked for the day. And then it's also too, if I do like a really good workout today and I don't stretch at least an hour before bed, I'm gonna wake up and feel like shit in the morning. And to me,
Mark, I
like
got you
again,
beat.
when I was like younger, when I was like 21, 22, I was like, okay, like I could totally see somebody like I get how people can do this into their late 30s. And then I hit a point after 25, I was like, that anybody who does this past 30, God be with you, because I have no idea how you keep your body like even remotely in check all the time. Because it's one thing to be in shape, it's another thing to feel good every day.
Yes. It is. I mean, Coach Gerlich talks about that all the time because when I was in Dallas, of course, we played in there. She was at UT Arlington, so
Yeah.
we played in their gym. So she says she'll never forget. She tells our players here to this day, like walking in the gym, it's an hour and a half before practice starts for the wings, and I'm on a bike. I'm trying to run up and down the court, trying to get warm for practice, and I'm like, yeah, and I still wasn't warm for practice. So it's like halfway through practice, I'm warm, but I mean, you just start to learn your body. Like you learn yourself. And sometimes I tell our players now, when you have injuries, for sure, you can't go back to being 100%. Like you're 100% of wherever you're at right now. And so you might be, you have to adjust to a new normal. You can't think about the old you like, hey, I remember when I was used to be able to just pop out here. Yeah, that doesn't happen. I still get up to this morning. Every morning I get up to this day, I have to stretch.
Yep.
And the girls laugh at me. I have to stretch during the day. So when we go out to practice, they are always laughing at me like, Coach P, why are you stretching with us? I'm like, I need this. I cannot move right now. I'm stiff.
Yeah.
I've been sitting at a desk and the same thing at night. Like, but you just have to learn your body and it's okay to not be, the typical person that I can just roll out of bed. I got a lot of miles on these legs.
Yeah. Cause it's
I get
just
up.
not, yeah, it's not realistic to even do
It's
that anyway. So
not.
it's like,
It's
but
not, but again, you have to take care of your moneymaker is what I like to tell them, like, this is your body is your temple, you have to take care of it, so whatever you need to do to extend the longevity of it, you have to do it.
no, absolutely. Well, Planette, I kept you longer than I said I would. This has been absolutely awesome. I do just to close out. What are you most excited about next month or two? Obviously, the season's coming up. Before then, what are you most looking forward to?
I'm excited about just getting in the gym with our girls again. Like I have missed them. I feel like they've only been gone for 3 weeks. I have missed them. So I'm excited about getting in the gym. I'm excited about mentoring them. I'm excited about our fan base and our community here in Lubbock. I'm excited about everything that I'm going to touch my hands on. Um, I just wanted to make it to be better than what I found it. Like
Yeah.
literally, that's just really what I'm excited about. And I have a birthday coming up, so I'm excited
Okay.
about that.
Congratulations,
Big
early birthday.
43 at the end of the month, August 31st, so I'm excited about that. Just another year, another blessing to be on this earth, another year to pour my passion into someone else.
I love that. It's been really cool to learn about your perspective and how you treat things. And I'm excited for you guys this season. I have a good feeling about this one for Texas Tech. Plenette Pierson, appreciate your time. To everyone listening, of course, keep up with all things Lady Raiders. Subscribe down below if you haven't already. Most importantly, have a great rest of your day. And thank you for listening.